Hello there again. It's David and Janice, and we're back to Genesis.
Yay!
Genesis chapters 12 through 15 was our reading today, and we're going to try to be brief and go over this, but there's a lot to unpack in this scripture.
There is. And just to set us in Genesis, we've got 50 chapters in Genesis, but it's not overwhelming if you remember that there are just simply 4 big events and 4 key people. We've already covered the 4 events in the first 11 chapters: the creation, the fall, the flood, and the Tower of Babel. So now we're starting in on the people: Abram or Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Those are who we'll cover. But today it's Abram. And I'd like to start in chapter 12 by just reading what he says. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. And so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed."
All of them?
All the families of the earth will be blessed.
Even ours?
Yeah. Yeah, is that not amazing?
Yeah.
God lays out, here's my plan. I want you to go into the unknown. You have no idea where you're going, but trust me, I'm going to lead you. And at this point, Abram and Sarai have no children, but he's saying you are going to have many descendants, and through them, I will bless everyone.
Wow.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. So he went with Sarai and his nephew Lot and all their things, and they got to Canaan. And God told him, look around, and everywhere you see, this is the land that I want to give you. So Abram built an altar and worshiped the Lord there. And then because of a famine, they went to Egypt. What happened in Egypt?
Well, on the way to Egypt, Abram hatched the plan because he was afraid that because Sarah's beauty was so great that they would kill him and take his wife to Pharaoh. And sure enough, when they get there, Pharaoh sees his wife and says, "Hey, go get her." He says, "Hey, tell him you're my sister." So Sarah goes along with it, but then God reveals to Pharaoh with a plague, and he finds out that Sarah's not his sister, but his wife. And so he says, "Take your wife and all the possessions that I've given you, the servants, the gold, the silver, the donkeys, the cattle, everything, and leave." And so they do, and they leave all the way back to Canaan.
Right. And when they get there, they realize they have too many animals, too many people to be sustained on this land. So Abram says, Lot, choose. Lot chooses an area. He chose the most fertile looking land, yes. And they divide in chapter 13. They separate. And God again reiterates, I'm going to give you so many descendants, Abraham, that they will outnumber the dust. Chapter 14, War of Kings.
Yeah, there's 5 kings basically to the north and the 4 kings around the Sodom and Gomorrah area. Yeah, they rebelled against the 5 kings, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during the war, Lot and his family and all the possessions were taken, and Abram gets word of it, and he and his band of 318, God was real specific to put that number in there, and they go and they get Lot and all their possessions back. And on the way back from that battle, whatever that entails, we don't have those details, they run into another key figure.
Right, Melchizedek, who just shows up out of nowhere, king of Salem, who brings to Abram bread and wine. What does that make you think of?
The Lord's Supper and Jesus.
Yeah, possibly a foreshadowing of Christ here meeting with Abram. And he blesses him, and he says, you need to know the Lord, the God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, is the one that gave you this victory. And we see that name, God Most High, in Hebrew. It's El Elyon, which means strongest, strong one. And just another little piece of the puzzle of understanding who God is. Absolutely. And Abram responds with giving a tithe, another first here.
Yeah, and this is where we get the concept of a tithe from, is this passage.
Right. And then chapter 15 starts with God talking to Abram and says, do not be afraid, but I am your shield, but I am going to cause you to have descendants. And Abram's trying to figure it out humanly, and we know better than to do that. But he says, maybe you mean Eliezer, another man, a helper in my household. Maybe he's my heir. And God says, nope, it's for someone from your own body that is going to be an heir. And then we see Abram's response in verse 6 of 15. It says, then Abram believed in the Lord, and the Lord reckoned it to him as righteousness. So that's our first picture of a believer, of someone who comes to the Lord and fully trusts in what God says, even though they don't see that fulfillment or have any tangible, physical, anything to put their confidence in. It's in God and who he is. And he says, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldees into this land to possess it. And then the Lord cuts covenant with Abram, another first being done this way. And he sacrifices animals, and he is underlining his faithfulness to his word of what he's told Abram he's going to do it.
And the interesting thing about this covenant is it's not the type of covenant we see elsewhere in the Bible where two people have an agreement with one another. No, this one's all on God. He says, I'm going to do this for you and your descendants. Mm-hmm. And we don't see any condition put on Abram as to be a part of this covenant.
Mm-mm. Then he tells him, you need to know that your descendants are going to be strangers in a land for 400 years. Mm-hmm. I will bring them out of captivity back to this land where they will possess it. And then he describes the land. He says it's from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates.
That's a lot of land area. It covers all the Arabian Peninsula. It covers the area on the other side of the Jordan, all the way up to Babylon and Turkey, half of Egypt. I mean, I don't even know how big it is, but it's huge.
Right. It's a big land. So, what do we see about God?
God's our provider.
Yes.
He's our shield. And he's going to bless those who bless Abram and curse those who curse them. And it's interesting to me that a lot of the nations that we'll read about all ended up being enemies of Israel. And where are they today?
Much less than they were, if they're even there.
If they're even in existence anymore.
Yeah. So a caution to not curse God's people, but to bless them. And we are a part of that, not genetically descendants of Abram, but by faith, we are his children.
Well, some people might be.
Some might be, yes. You and I are not. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us today on this adventure through Genesis, and I hope you are excited about what we're going to learn about as we continue through. So until tomorrow, we'll see you then.
Yeah, blessings to you.